Hello, hello, and welcome. It's so exciting to be here with you. It's Shondell from Life Puzzle. I want to welcome you to our weekly installment today. We are talking about finding a champion. What are the 5 simple techniques and things you can do to recruit influential inside support when it comes to really making a difference in an organization? Now, for those of you that have been following me for a while, or for any of our new people that have come along, welcome, welcome. My name is Shondell Labazetta, and we believe that sales is the #1 life skill. Now, if you haven't heard me say this before, well, I believe that the sales is the #1 life skill, and we are all in sales. Now, one of the things that we find time and time again, people reaching out to us and asking us questions around long form sales cycles. And if you haven't met me before, then I have a number of years of experience in all different types of sales and doing business at all different levels of sales, right from retail sales to transactional sales to large format, long scale deals, multi-million dollar deals. Today's tip really around finding your champion is really designed and directed at some of you who perhaps are talking more with our audiences, where you've got multiple decision makers, you're having trouble getting in touch with the person who's really making the decision, and we get calls all the time from people saying, Shondell, how do we get traction in our sales process when we've got long form sales deals? There's a lot of strategic conversations that need to happen. How do we accelerate the sales process? How do we get in touch with the right people? And so if you've ever struggled with some of those questions, or you've had challenges in being able to connect with the right people at the right time, then this is the training for you. So if you are watching me live, then please comment below and say champion, and we will send you a copy of the workbook. Or if you're watching this on my page, then all you need to do is click the button below and we will send you a copy of this workbook. So we'd love to hear from you around whether or not you're watching this live, hashtag live, and if you're watching the replay, then go ahead and pop in hashtag replay. So we're going to cover off on today 5 simple techniques that you can do in order to recruit influential insider support. And I think that, as I said before, for some of you that might be doing your long form sales and you have multiple decision makers, the constant complaint or the constant question that I get asked from people time and time again is, how do I really get in touch with the people who are really making the decisions? Along with, how do I deal with the objections that come up around timing? How do I deal with the issues around the fact that perhaps maybe your brand or your representation is not at the level that you would like it to be, that the people that you really want to connect with actually know who you are and the value that you can offer. So as we crack on into today, I want you to be thinking about what are some of those deals that have been really hard for you to crack and that you've been trying to get into for a really long time. And we're going to talk about some simple and effective ways in which you can find your champion within your organization. So as we move forward today, I really want to talk and just reference a key thing that maybe some of you are familiar with. This is what we call the 7-11-4 or the ZMOT study. Now, some of you may be familiar with a study that was run in conjunction with Google a number of years ago called the ZMOT study. And what was established, and the study is available online for those of you that might like to take a look at it. One of the things that we recognise from, and the intel that came from the ZMOT study, is the simple fact that we know that people have so much choice available to them these days. And so when people go to make buying decisions, what we find is that there's a lot of different choices out there. There's a lot of noise. There is a lot of different people that are trying to interrupt them and get their attention. And particularly if you're dealing with C-suite, or if you're dealing with people who are in very, very senior positions that manage large-scale teams that potentially have to chat with their board or follow a very specific process around the way that they get buying decisions through large organizations, then we can often meet with a lot of confusion. And sometimes what can happen, it gets so overwhelming for the people that are making these decisions that they'll often just put the deal to tender, or they'll worry about other people taking care of it for them, and simply just don't really engage in conversation. And so one of the challenges with this is that for you, if you're the person that's looking to really create that impact and you really want to have those empowering conversations, and you know that if you could just get in front of that right person and have that conversation with them, that would be the difference that makes the difference. And so as we learnt from the ZMOT study, as we went through that, is that generally people will take time in order to make a buying decision. And so what the ZMOT study actually found was that we need 7 hours of content that was delivered. So 7 hours of interaction with your brand over a period of time, or with you or your brand or the representation of your offer. Then we had 11 to 13 touch points over time. Now, this is a really important point because I meet BDMs and sales professionals all the time, and those BDMs and sales professionals often will have, a convincer of what we say 3. Now, convincer is something that comes from NLP. I don't have time to go into that today, but for those of you that might be interested, you might like to check out some of the tools that we have within our NLP Sales Mastery Academy group on Facebook, where you can find more about what is the convincer. And so for a lot of BDMs, as in business development managers, strategic salespeople, national salespeople, deal makers, basically, we find that there's generally a convincer of 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 touch points. If you are a strategic salesperson, you do a lot of large format deals with long sales cycles, then you might have a little bit more of a convincer than perhaps someone who might be doing more of a transactional arrangement. In saying that, what we know is that we actually need to have a convincer run. As a buyer, people don't want to be sold to, they want to buy in. And sometimes that process of getting them to buy in takes a little bit more than just 1 or 2 conversations. And I think that this is a really important point. If you take nothing else away from this conversation today, I want you to remember that people do not want to be sold, they want to buy in. And the process of them buying into your message and buying into what you have to offer and the value you deliver is really something that takes more than just 1 or 2 conversations, particularly if you're a strategic salesperson and you're doing long format, long sales deals, with multi-million dollars and multiple decision makers. Then you need to remember that 1 or 2 touch points probably isn't going to cut it. So as we come back to the ZMOT study, we know that it's about 11 to 13 touch points, and this is over 4 platforms. And so one of the real key things that I really want to stress to you today, if you're a person who is trying to do this kind of business, one of the key things that we need to do is don't be a one-trick Nelly, if you like. And so one of the things that I see really across the board, I work with a lot of different organizations in a lot of different industries and a lot of different seniority in terms of sales professionals that engage. And I notice that often people have something that they're really good at, something that is a comfort zone for them that they actually kick to. Now, for you, it might be about sending emails consistently, staying front of mind. For some people, it might be making the phone calls. For some of you might be really utilizing LinkedIn and maximizing what you can do in terms of your connections and your touch points on LinkedIn. But as we know from the ZMOT study, we know that people need to engage with you for 7 hours, roughly about 7 hours. We know that they need 11 to 13 touch points over a period of time, and we know that they want to actually experience you over 4 different platforms or 4 different avenues. And so it might very well be that part of your way of staying front of mind with some of these amazing people is being able to do certain touch points where you might find an interesting article or a piece of content that could be so helpful to that person. And maybe it's not connected to anything to do with your brand or what you're selling to them, but it's an opportunity for you to actually stay front of mind and deliver a service, or to actually give them a piece of information that can help them. Now, I don't know about you, but certainly for me, I've found in the past when people actually deliver me, something of value without necessarily expecting anything in return for it, it makes that person stand out in my mind. And so this is the law of reciprocity. And so when people feel like they've been given support, there's a sense of reciprocity, and that's one of the things that actually stands in their mind as being something that makes you memorable because you actually delivered that. So 7, 11, 4. But in order for us to really nail this area, I think one of the key things that I want to share with you today as you look at finding a champion, connecting with the people that you need to connect with, is that we need to elevate the thinking. Now, for those of you that are not familiar, I am in fact a master trainer of neuro-linguistic programming. For those of you that are not familiar with neuro-linguistic programming, NLP is an art and science on how we use the language of our mind in order to affect our results. It's also about getting curious about what makes people tick, what makes them do what they do. And why is it that sometimes we can go over here and have a conversation with someone, it goes really, really well, and then we try and replicate that over here and somehow it just doesn't seem to hit the mark. And so in the suite of tools that we have in neuro-linguistic programming, there are a number of things that help us to understand why does this happen and what can we do about it and how do we really make a difference in terms of connecting with people at a really deep level. And so if we have a look at elevating our thinking, if this is the kind of work that you're really wanting to do and this is how you really get the cut through, then what you really need to know is that we actually have three minds. And so we have a conscious mind. Your conscious mind is very much your logical, rational, reasonable mind. So this is the part of your mind and also your prospect's mind that allows us to be able to make sense of things. It allows us to understand what's important to us, the logical, the facts, the data. And you know, it was really interesting. I'll share with you that yesterday I was doing a presentation. We had about 45 sales professionals in a room, and often what I'll do when I'm chatting to people in these kinds of environments is I'll ask them what some of their key takeaways were from the session. And one of the gentlemen, a young sales professional, stood up and said, you know, one of the things that I'm really taking away from this is that, you know, facts tell and stories sell. And so this is really important as I get into this next segment, because sometimes when we sell, particularly large format deals, very technical things, like I work with a lot of technical sales professionals, and one of the things that they do is they focus on all the logical facts and the data associated with the transaction. They'll focus on price, they'll focus on details, they'll focus on all of that information. And so really, while we're talking about that, our facts are really about telling people what it is that we can do, how we deliver that, and what kind of impact it's going to make. Now, we actually have two other minds that are really important in the conversation, because believe it or not, we only live 10% of our lives consciously. That's the logical data, that information. So we only spend 10% of our lives consciously in this space. What we do know is that we also have an unconscious mind, or some of you may be familiar with it as a subconscious, as an unconscious mind. I call it unconscious because most people are unconscious of their subconscious. And so when we look at the unconscious mind here, we are living 90% of our lives unconsciously. And our unconscious mind is responsible for all of our emotions, and it is responsible also for our behaviours and the way that we actually respond. And so 90% of our lives is lived here. This is where we feel the impact of the challenge that we've got. This is where we experience the joy of the results that we get. And then of course we've got a thing that we call our critical faculty, and our critical faculty is the part of us that chooses, it's the part of us that questions, and it's also the part of us that is decisive. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, Shondell, I thought you were talking about finding a champion in an organization, and I absolutely am, because you see, the way that you have these three minds, also your prospects have these three minds. And so if we're elevating our thinking in this context, we have to be looking at how are we adapting our messaging and what are we doing in being able to connect with the right people at the right time. And so as we move into this this process of being able to find a champion in your organization, the one thing that I really want to highlight here is the fact that the old way of doing business was that we used to, and particularly, you know, some of you might be more in a transactional role, and for those of you that are more in a transactional role, or perhaps you're you know, selling something that potentially a decision can be made on the day or within a couple of visits, then often what we do is we have you, who is the sales professional, and you are wanting to connect with the decision maker, and there's an interaction that happens backwards and forwards between you and the decision maker. And so one of the mistakes that I see happen time and time again is people who have moved from being in a transactional type role where they're talking to the decision maker directly, or they're trying to get through their gatekeepers to actually talk to the decision maker, is that when they start doing these large form deals, and particularly if you're dealing with C-suite, or you're dealing with you know, needing to get sign off from boards, or if there's a supply process that gets followed as a result of signing off a deal, this is a really important thing that doesn't happen in these types of deals. And so what generally happens is in the new process of selling, we have the sales professional, or the person who's looking to bring together the people that are making the deal, And they're trying to find one decision maker. But you see, in this new way of looking at things, we actually have multiple decision makers in the process. And so all these people around the table here actually have a role to play or something to say in terms of making a decision. And this can be a real challenge, because often what happens is our sales professionals will, they'll actually find one person that they think is the decision maker, and they generally have a conversation with that person. And this is where we get a bunch of yeses. We get people looking like they're absolutely going to take action, and then all of a sudden at the last minute they're saying, oh well, such and such from this department wasn't on board, or we're actually looking at another solution and I didn't know about that. And this is where we get all of those objections coming up. And so the real key to your success here is this is where we actually start to find a champion in your organization. And the definition of a champion is a person who is at the hub, who actually has a bunch of relationships with all of these people that play a role in the decision-making process. And if you start to organize yourself to find a champion within your organization, then that is going to make a huge difference, because instead of you being in a position where you have to find your own introductions to these people, where you have to do your own sales pitches, where you have to pass multiple gatekeepers, what you're doing is you're building relationships with an influential person within the organization that already has the stakeholder relationships and that can champion your message. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, what are some of the key things that you need to do in order to find a champion? Now, when we talked about the ZMOT study, we talked about the fact that some sales professionals actually have like a, one-trick Nelly kind of thing. They're either really good at the phone, or they're really good at sending emails and following up, or they're really good at, their LinkedIn outreach, or some of those things. And so when we look at some of these different tactics that we're utilizing to connect with people, I think it's really important that you actually start to up your game in terms of what kinds of connections you're making and utilizing your own network. I was doing a presentation the other day and talking about sales and marketing, and I said to a group of people, I said, behind every single person that we meet, there's between 50 and 250 people that person knows. Some a little less, and some a little more. Obviously, there are some people that are, perhaps like myself, that networking was a big thing. I'm a people person. I love to meet people, so I know lots of people, and I have an amazing memory for lots of people and their names and what they do, and keep in contact. And so some of us, we might connect and be a bit more of what we call a network hub, and that may not necessarily be you. It might be that you actually have some influential relationships. So one of the things I really want to highlight here is there's 3 key actions that you can actually do in order to find your champion. And the first one is to actually utilize your network. And so utilization of your network is being able to look through. Now, it used to be back in the day, we used to have things like networking events. I remember very early in my career, one of the worldwide networking organizations is Business Networking International. We have things like Chamber of Commerce, we have industry events, we have various different things that we can do in order to really connect with people and find those connections in terms of who they know and what they do, and building some of those deeper relationships. So you might already have some amazing champions in your network that you haven't even tapped into. And one of the greatest ways that we can do that, obviously with the effect of the last couple of years and how we've been doing business, some networking events, people are not, running them anymore. They're not working in the same way. If they are, then I really encourage you to, change things up a little bit and go and connect with some people, get interested in them. And we have a whole suite of tools and various different things around how you network and how you connect and what are some of the things to say. And in fact, one of the things that we've got coming up this month is our Winning Words workshop, which if you're watching this live, you have been able to access the workbook. And so this is on the last page of your workbook here. We have our Winning Words workshop. So this is really about, what words to use to shape your results. And this is from everything from conversations, negotiations, really being able to use the power of language to shape your results. And so if you're watching this live and you'd like a copy of this workbook, just make sure that you pop champion below, and we'll make sure we get that workbook off to you. And if you're watching this on my page, then please feel free to just click the button below and you can access this. And so we have our Winning Words workshop coming up in May. So if you want more information around that, it's actually about utilising the power of language to really shape our results in all different contexts. So there's a QR code there that you can access the information, and you must register in order to get it. The other thing too is that if you're not able to be there live, then we do actually have an option for you to be able to access the recording. And so when we talk about finding a champion within our organisation, one of the real key things that we want to do is we want to make sure we're utilising our network. Now, you might be doing that directly live in person with people that you're meeting with and connecting with, or you might actually be doing this from the perspective of utilising your network through LinkedIn. One of the amazing things, and particularly, this is I definitely don't get commissions from LinkedIn. I'm not a sponsor of LinkedIn. One of the things that I really do appreciate in the context of our larger form sales, dealing with C-suite, dealing with finding champions in your organisation, is really utilising the tools on LinkedIn and being able to see what are the connections and what is a way of introduction into the organisation for those influential people that perhaps are what we call the network connector hub, that has these stakeholder relationships that can help champion your message and building that relationship with that person in terms of what do they really need and how can we help them. The other thing that we really want to be able to do too is as part of finding your champion, it's about being consistent and about following up. And so when we talk about consistency, I think that one of the things that I mentioned earlier is that if you've previously been, or in your career, if you developed or sold in a transactional type role where you actually start and finish a conversation within 2 or 3 meetings, or maybe even on the first meeting, maybe it's a telephone sales, you might be selling memberships or things like that. I think sometimes what can happen is when you transition into a bigger type sale and you really want to find a champion, you really need to deal with multiple stakeholders, we're not consistent in the way that we actually follow up. And so this is about managing time, managing your efficiency, making sure that if you're going to do something, then you're following up and remembering the 7 hours, the 11 to 13 touch points, and of course the 4 different platforms. So don't be a one-trick Nelly or a one-trick Nancy. Make sure that you're utilising all the different tools and all of the different resources that you have in order to do that. And of course, the final thing in terms of the third action that you want to take in order to be a champion is this concept of getting interested as opposed to trying to be interesting. And so what I really want to highlight here is the fact that a lot of the time when people are selling to big organisations, one of the things that the itty bitty shitty committee brings up, so if you haven't heard me talk about the itty bitty shitty committee before, the itty bitty shitty committee is the group of people that sit on your shoulder and tell you why you can't have what you want and why you won't do it. And this is why we talk about the 3 sales, the 3 important sales. The first sale is the sale you make to yourself in terms of your worth and value. The second sale is the sale of influence, where you have a conversation and you can share your ideas with influence and get buy-in from people. Remember that people don't want to be sold to, they want to buy in, and it's your job to be able to get them to buy in. And then of course the third conversation, or the third sale, is the traditional sale that we all know, which is the transactional sale, where we actually exchange money and time for dollars and services, and for services and products, I beg your pardon. And so when we talk about getting interested, I think so many people, when they're doing more of a sale where it's a long form sale, or they need to connect with multiple decision makers, they need to bring together people in C-suite, they need to appeal to a board or tenders, etc., is that often one of the things that they do is they spend so much time focusing on how they can be super interesting as an organization. Our company can do this, and this is the runs that we've got on the board, and here's how awesome we are, and this is why you should choose us, and worse, here's why we're better than our competitors, and here's how we smash the competition. Please, 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 if you take nothing else away from today's session, please do not do this. The idea here is to actually get interested in your champion. So be the trusted advisor, okay? And so if you're not familiar with what I mean by being the trusted advisor, a trusted advisor is someone who really understands the pains, the gains, the goals, and the outcomes that someone is really trying to achieve within their organization across multiple departments. So what we need to do is we need to take off the blinkers, and we need to start asking really great quality questions, getting interested in what is the organization trying to achieve, what are each of the individuals trying to achieve with their teams, what is it that strategically they're trying to roll out, and all the other things that are surrounding the information that you're there to present or the solution that you're there to sell, what's the impact of those things on everywhere else within the business? And sometimes that takes a little bit more research, but I've got to tell you that often when we're doing long form deals or we're doing more strategic deals or bigger deals are on the table, we understand that we need to put some more work into building our relationships. We need to put some more work into understanding the business unit. And so if you've recently made a transition into this type of selling, then one of the things I really want to encourage you to do is to be on our Winning Words workshop, because I'm going to be sharing a lot of stuff in terms of how we position ourselves as a trusted advisor. How do we build credibility and authority? And at Life Puzzle, one of the things that we do is at the heart of everything we do, we talk about dauntless determination, which is effortless selling, having unconditional future, meaning that you can write your own future, and knowing that whatever situation you walk into, you can have elemental confidence, meaning that it's inbuilt, and no matter who you're in front of or what challenge you're faced with, that you always feel confident within yourself that you can find the resources and the answer. And so at Winning Words workshop, we're going to be talking about utilizing the power of language in order to shape your results. So if this is an area that you've just transitioned into, or if you're familiar with this kind of sales and you've been doing this for a little while, I still encourage you to come along to the workshop, because we're looking at different ways in which we can truly step into being a trusted advisor, and how do we approach these things? How do we get these right connections? So if you're watching this live on the page, then I really want to encourage you to type in there #live or champion, and we can get a copy of the workbook to you. If you are watching this on my page, then just click the button below and we'll make sure that we get you a copy of the workbook and everything that you need. And of course, last call for you guys, we've got our Winning Words workshop coming up. The QR code is here, or you can find out more information at our website as well. So guys, it's been a real pleasure. I really want to hear from you in terms of the awesome things that you're doing to go out there and find a champion within your organization. We'd love to hear about your success. And if you have any questions at all, please reach out to support@lifepuzzle.com.au. And until we meet again, it's Shondell from Life Puzzle. Be well and be empowered. Bye for now.